up?
Now just recording a podcast. What's up with you?
Oh, not too much. You know what, though?
What?
You need a counselor.
Thanks, so do you.
I do need a counselor. You're right. So welcome back to the You Need a Counselor podcast. My name is Julie Johnson. I am the founder and president of Heart and Solutions Counseling Agency here in Iowa. We are currently offering outpatient mental health counseling via telehealth and in our 9 locations. We are also offering in-home behavioral health intervention services for kids. Oh my gosh, right now with all of the changes that kids are having, with all of the chaos that is going on in our lives as adults, but also in our kids' lives, oh my gosh, call us about BHIS. If you haven't done BHIS yet for your kiddos, sometimes people think BHIS is like, okay, there's something wrong with my kid's behavior, so I need something. But really, like everything that a child communicates is communicated sometimes through words, but mainly kids communicate through behaviors. They're learning how to communicate with words still. And so behavioral intervention is kind of like French lessons for your kids as they're going through challenges in their lives. If I want to say, can I get a Dr. Pepper in French, because I'm in France, right? And I want to do that successfully, I need coaching on that. I need practice on that. And I need intentional instruction and models of how to do that. And that's what BHIS is for behavior. It is like French lessons. It is how do I communicate through my behavior the things that I'm trying to say, communicate them effectively so that I do get a Dr. Pepper out of the deal, right? BHIS is also available via phone or telehealth right now, or in home. So you never have to drive to us, which is awesome. So give us a call for BHIS.
I'm Chrissa. I am the vice president at Heart and Solutions. So I'm in charge of that BHIS program that Julie was talking about. BHIS stands for Behavioral Health Intervention Services. So we work with kids 4 to 18, like Julie mentioned, on those different behaviors, whether it's in home, telehealth right now, or on the phone as well. And this is our podcast, and we are You Need a Counselor. So the mission of our podcast is designed for people curious about counseling, but have barriers preventing them from experiencing the benefits of counseling. Our mission is to share stories about counseling, good, bad, and indifferent, and spread the message that everyone can benefit from mental health and behavioral health counseling services.
I feel like when I say, like, as we ask people to be guests on the podcast, as we kind of talk about, hey, you should listen to this episode of the podcast. And I say, the podcast is called You Need a Counselor podcast. Like almost everybody laughs, but like a knowing laugh, like, because I think that, I think that when we hear it, we go, yeah, I do. Or we think of somebody we know in our lives and we go, I want to send this podcast to that person because you need a counselor. And it's so true. Everybody does. We need a counselor. I need a counselor for sure. Everybody on our podcast does. We're just really excited to talk to you guys today on this episode. So we do post on Sunday nights at 5:00. So please batch up your laundry and do it on the weekends and then put it all away at one time on Sunday night. Don't spread that task out. Nobody likes that. Okay. On a Thursday, do that on Sunday night and you can go ahead and put on the episode and listen to us while you're pairing up your socks. All right. So today we have a really exciting guest on. We've got Jennifer Payne. Welcome to the podcast, Jennifer.
Thank you, Chrissa and Julie. It's nice to be here today. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Absolutely. We're so excited to have you on here. And for background information for our listeners, Jennifer is the newest member of the Heart and Solutions Compliance Board. For our compliance board, as we continue to build that and flesh that out and round out the different perspectives that we're getting in that compliance board, we really seek out people who can look at a compliance issue from multiple different lenses. I think that sometimes with compliance, we can get very tunnel vision on those. And so we really like to have very real world types experiences and perspectives when we're talking through a compliance issue. So when we asked Jennifer, like, tell us about you, first thing she said was, I'm a mom. And I love that. I've been on podcasts and I've been asked like, well, tell us about you. And that's always the first thing that I say. I am a mom. You're also a student right now. And tell us about that.
Wow. Julie, I came from medical, and then I also came from I guess it would be like a audit background, numbers, so medical and numbers. So now I'm kind of marrying the two because now I'm going into medical billing and coding. My passion is medical and helping people, but I thought it would be wiser and a little bit better for my mentality to go into the billing side of things. So I can still kind of help people, but not get emotionally attached if someone passes.
It is a rare bird and a rare find to find somebody who is interested in people, the people side, the helping side, the medical side, but also understands numbers and spreadsheets, right? And formulas and equations and tracking and data entry. Those two skill sets are not always compatible. But so it is a rare find to find somebody like you who is competent in both and enjoys both of those.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so medical coding and billing, that's awesome. I love that you are, as you're studying that, it sounds like your purpose in that and goal in that is that, okay, it's not just because I love data crunching in a room by myself, right? It's because I know the importance of those coding and helping with insurance nightmares, right? And compliance issues, because all of those things are the things that keep a agency able to provide services. And when you've got somebody like an administrative person or a billing specialist person who honestly cares about each of those accounts as people, as opposed to like, oh, your account number 56389, right? Nobody wants to feel that way. And so just what I'm hearing from you is that that is the purpose of why you're going into that field. I think that's going to take you really, really far.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
So far, I'm getting a 4.0 GPA, so I'm hoping that carries on too, because I think that will help,
Yeah, absolutely. And then you're a business owner too, and you run a family business.
I am.
Yeah.
Yes. I am 51% owner of an LLC that is shared. I do more of the administrative side, so all the paperwork, again, the numbers, and making sure that we are in compliance with the IRS, that we're filing all the state licensings on time, and so on and so forth. It's not really very complicated, but if you don't have a lot of attention to detail, a lot of important things can get missed, and therefore it has kind of a domino effect to that. So yeah, that's kind of I call that my side hustle, because right now my career is mainly the school, taking care of my daughter, taking care of the house. I kind of consider those my main jobs.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing how, you've used this kind of metaphor. I think you use the metaphor of like the marriage between, that service side and the like billing side. And in your case, it really is, it's a literal marriage between the side that you're doing and the service side. And my husband and I are the same way, Jennifer. He runs payroll. He runs, he does our taxes. He does all of that budgeting stuff. And then I focus on the service side. And they're literal marriages. That's kind of funny. What we really want to know, and we want to hear so much more about the motherhood side of your resume here, because I think it's so awesome that you're a student, that you're a business owner, but really, like I said, the first thing you told us was mother. I am a mother. And like you said, that's your full-time job. And tell us more about that and what that means to you.
First and foremost, let me kind of reiterate a little bit, because when I say a job, it kind of makes it sound like it's tedious or mundane or something someone would normally think and associate with a job if they've maybe been there a long time and they don't necessarily have a passion for. It's nothing like that. My daughter is my number one reason that I get up every morning. I personally suffered with a little bit of depression there for a while before I started school and found my path. But she was my main reason for getting up every morning, besides my dogs and my cats. But her happiness and her growth as a person, and just, knowledge as a person, physically, everything all encompassed in one, is my priority to make sure that she's protected, happy, and she is healthy. I'm sure that's similar to most parents, but right now my daughter suffers with depression and anxiety, and it's pretty severe. So that's pretty new to me because I've never witnessed anything like that before. I've never personally been hands-on dealing with that before. I mean, I've had friends and things like that that maybe dealt with that, but I never personally dealt with it myself. As a parent, you sit back and you think, well, as a parent, you always want to fix things for your child. You always want to protect them and kind of put them in a little bubble, like, oh, well, let me protect you from this, But there are some things in life that I'm beginning to understand that you can't always necessarily protect them from, but you can give them tools to help cope with them and deal with them. And that's what I'm working on right now with her, is giving her a different mindset. Like, okay, well, instead of looking at it like this, like, I don't have anything, everything sucks basically, and everything is just gloomy. Let's look at it like this. What do you have that makes you happy? What made you happy today? What activities make you happy on a daily basis? Let's focus on that instead. And changing that mindset or changing that perspective is really important. It's not just about the counseling. It's not just about the medication. It's more about changing your perspective on things and flipping it into, instead of something dark and scary, let's flip it over to, oh, that's not so bad. I take a perspective like, okay, so this is a problem, right? Is your problem going to matter to you in a week? Is it going to matter in a month? Is it going to matter in a year? Is it going to matter in 5 years? If all of those answers are no, then consider your problem. Is it really a problem?
I love that. I love that validation of, is it going to matter to you? And I love how you emphasize that piece of it, right?
Yes. Because it's not really fair to dismiss people's concerns or what they consider problems just because it may not be a problem in your perspective. Mm-hmm. It is all about perspective, basically. So if I consider something a problem, someone over here might not, but that doesn't mean that it's not a problem to me.
There's two things that are really standing out to me here. One is what an active role you are taking in your daughter's overall health, including her mental health, physical safety, emotional understanding and growth. And I think that sometimes with counseling, parents get very overwhelmed by the challenges that their children are going through. It's painful for a parent to see their child going through something. I mean, I've got a 4-year-old, and if she wants a popsicle and I say no to that because it's 8:00 in the morning, she's still upset, and it's still painful for me to watch that. And so I think, so, no matter the scale of what's happening, anytime that our children are suffering, it's painful for us to experience that. Sometimes parents go into it like you're expressing, like, I don't have firsthand understanding of this. I don't have firsthand experience with this. And so I think then parents can sometimes get into feeling very powerless and helpless to help their kiddos. And what I'm hearing you say is that is how you started in this situation. You were like, okay, I'm coming in from the start, with nothing, from the ground up. And then took that as a process that you started learning things yourself, and then started to share those things with your daughter, or to start to encourage your daughter to try to use these certain things. What I'm hearing you saying is that you're not saying to your daughter, hey, you need to do these things. You're saying to your daughter, these are the things that I've been learning. These are the things that I've been thinking and using for myself, and they're working. And I think they could work for you too. I think that's such a different way of supporting a child through any struggle, instead of trying to, you're encompassing those techniques and then you're modeling them for her instead of saying, this is what you need to do.
Absolutely. I think that children learn best from an example. Like, so if you want your child to, I don't know, behave a certain way, talk to you in a certain way, model that for them. Mm-hmm. So for instance, if your child, like for a long time, my daughter decided that she could talk to me in a manner that back in the day, my mom would have freaked on me if I talked to my daughter. Like if I talked to her like that, I probably would have gotten a lot of trouble. But my daughter was snippy, like just sassy, snippy, the tone of voice, that sort of thing. And so I sat her down one day and I talked to her and I said, I don't really like your tone. I feel like kind of insulted by it, What can we do to change that? And she just said to me, Mom, you talk to me like that all the time. I'm like, and I wasn't really aware of it. So being more self-aware helped me help her. And then once I got myself, tamed or, was more aware of how I was acting towards her and talking towards her, then I could I took a step back and just watched her more. Like, okay, so now that I'm acting this way, how is she acting now? And she's absolutely right. Like my actions affected her. So when I was talking or being kind of snippety, because I was under a lot of stress a while ago. So I think that kind of came out, and we always kind of, lash out at the people close to us because we can, and they allow us to because they love us. And that's such a tragedy. I mean, I think we as people need to take better care of each other's hearts and keep more in mind of everyone's feelings involved, not just ourselves, but everyone around us. Be more in tune with that, because if we don't, then there's so much like lack of communication, miscommunication, misinterpreted communication, things that if she's snippety to me, I automatically assume that it has to do with me. Not necessarily. I mean, it could be doing something totally that I don't understand that she's not telling me, that it has something to do with that too. So now when she's feeling a certain way, and she starts to kind of be snippy, I call her out on it. I'm like, do you need to talk about something? Do you want to talk? And it's important to open that line of communication with your child. Even, if you think you're too busy to sit down and talk to them, you have so many things going on, you have meetings, you have housework, you have whatever, take that time to sit down and talk to your child, because it could mean the world to them. I am really thankful I have that with my child, that I have that connection with her. Otherwise, I would have never known about how she feels. I would have never gotten her the help that she is getting right now.
Absolutely. And, I hear you express gratitude that you have that open line of communication, but it's not luck that brought you there. And I think sometimes we can get into the thought of, well, I don't have that relationship with my child. But what I'm hearing you say is that it's not luck that built that trust between you. It's these examples of times where she's expressed something to you and you accepted her point of view, and you looked at yourself and you said, okay, am I expecting a standard from her that I'm not showing her how to do? And so I really love that example of being able to set kind of, this is the standard of how we treat each other. This is the standard of how we talk to each other and listen to each other and make adjustments in terms of what we can control. And like you said, we can't control our children, but we can control our own choices and how we respond. And then that in turn gives them the opportunity to be able to pick up on that modeling and do that behavior and try it and see that it does work. It doesn't mean that they will do it always because we model it, but it gives them the opportunity to do it.
Yeah. Yes. Tools. Basically, that's all you're providing for your child is tools. Because right now, a lot of kids are searching for themselves, for one, and for tools how to cope with the struggles that come up in the meantime. And a lot of kids lack the tools to cope with that. They don't know what to do, so they lash out or they get lost in translation, so to speak, like depressed, because they're like, oh my gosh, there's so much coming at me all at once, and I don't know how to deal with that. So a lot of kids, their first notion is just to shut down. Like, I don't want to deal with it. It's just too much. I don't want to deal with it, rather than dealing with it and going through it step by step. Like, okay, just take one thing at a time, Yeah, it's sad. And then a lot of children don't know that there's help out there for them. They think that there's such a taboo surrounding mental health. Like, people automatically get labeled, if you seek someone to help you mentally, or just there isn't an opportunity for help sometimes because, for one, there used to be a waiting list for that too. And I was so honored to hear that you guys don't have that. So that's awesome for all those people out there that might need help and just maybe want someone just to talk to. A lot of people out there that might need help often don't get that help because, for one, sometimes there's a waiting list for people. So if you call a facility or if you call a place, sometimes there's a 6-month waiting list just to talk to someone. I ran into that when I first started seeking help for my daughter, and I couldn't believe it. I'm like, why does it have to take a crisis or an event to get that help needed? Like, if there's a crisis, then you have to go to the emergency room. And then sometimes you'll get that help once you've been to the emergency room. But why does it have to take that? Why can't you kind of proact and go into it like, I just need somebody to talk to, someone that's not biased, not my parents, because some parents aren't very easy to talk to. Mm-hmm. And I just want somebody to talk to. And when I heard from Julie and I got on the board and everything, Julie told me a little bit about the organization. And I'm like, oh my gosh, where have you been? Like, this is incredible. There is no waiting list. And I've never even heard of people coming to the home and helping. OMG. Like, I've never even heard of that. And if I've never even heard of that, I'm wondering, like, who else hasn't heard of it? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think it's so awesome that you guys provide that for people. That's such a blessing, because there are so many people out there that need help, but don't know how to get it, and don't know that there's organizations out there that are ready and waiting,
Yeah, I think there's so much in what you're saying that I just absolutely love. So, I mean, what I'm hearing is that, like, for all listeners out there who are your proactive parents, you are supporting your children, you are facing something brand new that you have never experienced before. You're watching your child in pain, which is so painful as a parent to watch. And yes, if you're having those, kind of helpless feelings of like, okay, I'm starting from ground zero, I don't know what I'm doing, that's okay. Because the main component there, because almost all parents end up that way, right? And even if you're in the field, we can't be objective about our own kids. We just can't. Yeah. And so even if we're in the field, we can still have those feelings of, I don't know where to go. But what I'm hearing from you, Jennifer, is that main component there was the willingness yes, to seek out the information, the willingness to apply it to yourself, apply what you've learned to your family, and then have honest communication with your daughter. And that seems like a very intentional step or series of steps of saying, I want an open relationship with my daughter. I want a relationship where I am building trust with my daughter every interaction that we have. That interaction where, if she said something snippy to you and then you said, hey, I don't appreciate that. Please don't do that. What are we going to do about this? And then she said, well, you talk to me that way. That was a make or break moment for trust, right? Because it was a huge opportunity to build trust by saying, okay, I hear you and I need to think about that and I need to process that. And then for her to see action being taken about that, that builds so much trust. But I think sometimes parents are afraid to show that weakness in their own skills.
Absolutely. Because it's like, it's a matter of, I'm the boss because I'm the parent, and you kind of have to put that, but you have to put that perspective kind of aside and think to yourself, how am I acting? How are my actions presenting to her? How are my actions teaching her? And if you don't know that, if you're not sure of that, then you need to take a step back and kind of self-examine, like maybe I should improve on that, or maybe I should kind of tweak those words just a little bit. I'm going to tell you personally, there for a while, I used to run my house like a drill sergeant. I had a schedule for my daughter. At certain times, okay, you're going to take a bath at this time. You're going to do your homework this time. You're going to, like this.
That's my house.
Right. And if we strayed from that, well, oh my goodness, if she talked to me, it was yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. I was trying to teach her respect and structure. That was my goal. It wasn't about like, I thought I was better or anything like that. It was more so, I want my child to have structure, respect, and a schedule to go by. So she has something kind of to grasp to in life. Like, okay, I'm good with this because this is how my house was. So when things got down the road a little bit and she became a preteen, then things got a little bit different because her friends didn't have a structure. Her friends didn't have a schedule. Just various things kind of all went against that. And so my drill sergeant personality kind of went out the window. And I got a couple of books to help me too, kind of rethink and reprogram my thinking and how to talk with my daughter and interact with her rather than, I'm not her best friend by any means. And that's not my goal in life. I am still her mother. I am still her parent. And I am still here on this earth to provide and teach her and make sure she's healthy and she grows. That's my priority. But in doing that, I can treat her like a human being. I don't have to shout at her. I don't have to spout commands at her. I don't want to be treated like that. I'm not going to treat her like that, basically, is my mindset. Kind of do unto others as you want done to you. It's kind of the same for your kids. If you don't want them to treat you snotty, or if you don't want them to snippety at you, don't do that to them. You don't have to. Most kids can comprehend pretty well if you're having a discussion with them, like, you know what, this isn't working. Let's try this instead. And it's not working because I don't want this outcome. And you explain things like that to them, they're going to get it, especially at that age. I don't know about youngsters so much. I think you have to use other terms for that. But basically, teens, preteens, teenagers, just treat them human. I mean, that's all you have to do. And if they're telling you something, listen. Don't be like, oh, well, I'm the parent and what I say goes. Don't be like that. Just listen and try to comprehend a little bit with that.
And so what I love about your story is that I think that our listeners, any listener hearing this, can tell what a dedicated mom you are and what a connected mom you are to your daughter. And even so, even in the best of conditions, mental health concerns they still happen to all of us.
Yeah.
And so what I love about your story is that sometimes parents can get into kind of like blaming themselves if their children are struggling with depression or struggling with anxiety. It's like, I don't know if I can get them help because I feel like it's my fault, right? And what I'm hearing from you is just the opposite. You are a dedicated, proactive mother who had a good relationship and continues to improve and build that good relationship and trust with your daughter. And your daughter still struggled and suffered from some mental health conditions. And that's the case a lot of the time, but nobody talks about that, right? We hear cases of, well, maybe it was the family life, maybe it was this or that. And sometimes that is the case with trauma situations, right? But when we think about mental health diagnoses that have to do with our brain chemistry, that have to do with the way that we process things, these are not diagnoses that you can like make your child have, right? And I think that's, and also these are not diagnoses that you can stop your child from having, even if you are a very dedicated parent. And I think a lot of parents need to hear that. They need to hear that you are a great mom, Jennifer is a great mom, and her daughter's still having these challenges because that's not the cause for any of those things. And so I really, really love that. What I also love about your story and what you've shared with us is how proactive you were. So as soon as you realized, and you've realized fairly, luckily earlier than maybe you might have if you didn't have that, trust and communication. And so as soon as you identified that with your daughter and you said, okay, you're going through something, we gotta get you some support. You were very proactive about that. And you've made the distinction here between, I didn't want to wait until it was a crisis. I didn't want to wait until it was an emergency. I wanted to be proactive and start this process and get this counseling support before, right, there was a crisis situation. And I think so many parents need to hear that too, because the more proactive we can be, the better our chances of helping our kids to be able to implement those strategies and be able to manage their symptoms in a manageable way day by day before they're trying to clean up the mess of a crisis or get themselves out of a crisis and then start to build those skills. And what I'm also hearing is that even for those super, super proactive moms, there are barriers to getting in. There are waiting lists. There are insurance issues. There are so many barriers.
It's so terrible. Julie, when I started this journey with my daughter, I called, well, first of all, the school that she attended offered a service. So that's how we kind of got introduced to it. And then after that, then we got a different counselor or therapist of her choice versus what the school provided, because she didn't really have that rapport with the school assigned one. So I thought, well, it might be a little bit easier to talk to somebody that you can relate to and you like, I mean, just common sense. So we got a different one, and that one decided that it was appropriate to talk about ourselves all the time. And so then we tried to just go other places, but I found waiting lists. Like one organization that I called was a 6-month waiting list to talk to somebody. Like, I'm not talking about like putting her in an organization or putting her in a facility. I'm just talking about just her talking to someone other than me. That blew me away. I'm like, what about all those people that need someone immediately, like right now, like today, they're crying, they're having a nervous breakdown in their house, or their child is hiding in their room because they don't want to talk to their parents. And whatever that place in your life that you're going through, there should be so many avenues that you can take with that. And a 6-month waiting list is not acceptable. I mean, I actually wrote to I have a friend that is in the state legislature, and I wrote to that person and I pleaded with them, and I got a petition signed together with a couple other people that were going through the same thing at the time that I networked with. And still, mental health, it has come a long ways, but it also needs to be right up there with, if you are sick and you have the flu, or if you have, another condition, an ailment, you go to the doctor immediately. Like, you don't just sit and wait for 6 months and think
right.
that you get better.
Right.
I think that mental health should be revered the same way, looked at the same way as physical health. Your overall health is so important. Mm-hmm. So mental health is considered your health also, and that should be right up there with the physical health, but it's not. And until it gets to the point where it is considered just as important as physical health, there's going to be so many people that don't have the tools or don't have the resources to know that there's help out there other than the 6-month waiting list. And so therefore, they give up or whatever, because they don't, when you're depressed or you're going through a crisis or you're going through something that I won't even mention, but basically you don't really have the motivation to look around at other places. Like, okay, well, this one's a 6-month waiting list, so I'm going to just try over here instead. You pretty much give up after the 6-month one, like, oh, well, if that one's like that, then pretty much all of them are the same. Mm-hmm. But it's not true. Not all places have a 6-month waiting list. And so I think it's important for everyone to get on board to not have that, not have the 6-month waiting list. Like, okay, well, this organization over here doesn't have a 6-month waiting list, but this one does. Why? Why is there that discrepancy between the two?
Yeah. What I love about your journey is that when you identified, okay, this is a challenge that we're both going through now, so we're in this together to figure out how we're going to cope with this challenge. You had that openness to the counselor that was in the school that was provided. You had that openness to participating in that when the school said, hey, we've got this resource. You had the willingness to say, yes, let's try that. But you also had the willingness to say, that doesn't feel like a good fit. Mm-hmm. And I really love that in this situation that your daughter was able to communicate that, and that you listened, you heard that, and you were able to communicate that and make a change based on that. And I think that there are so many points in time for your story and your journey here where you could have easily said, okay, it's too much. I'm, counseling isn't for us. And so I think that that's one of the first ones where that could have happened. But what I love is that you said, nope, we're going to try somebody else. We're going to try for a different fit. And so then you looked for resources outside of the school. You started with another counselor, and your daughter that wasn't a fit either, because counselors aren't supposed to talk about themselves. So if you're hearing this and you've been through that, or if you're hearing this and you've tried a counselor and you're like in your first couple of meetings with that person, you're like, I didn't get to talk this whole time because this counselor's talking about themselves the whole time. Hear this from Jennifer. You get somebody else. Keep looking.
Mm-hmm. But I kind of thought at first, I kind of wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt, because I thought, well, maybe she's doing it to give an icebreaker, get her to talk about herself, because if she's showing her, hey, I'm talking about myself, I'm opening up to you, so maybe you can open up to me. Maybe, and I thought maybe that was what was going on, but my daughter told me that she told her a few things, but yet it was more of, oh, well, this happened to me, kind of like trying to relate to her. And I thought, well, maybe that's just how she communicates, I guess. And then I thought after a couple of weeks that was pretty counterproductive. I mean, it's like, you're not achieving anything by talking about yourself consistently. My daughter needs to talk to you because that's why we got you. And so that prompted me to find somebody else, because at this point I was desperate for her to get help that she needed. and that would actually provide her tools for something. And I felt like a failure as a parent because I couldn't provide her the tools to cope and understand and deal with the things that she was going through. And I thought, well, if I can't find anybody to help her, then what? But the thing is you don't give up on that. If you don't find a therapist that fits, find another one. Find another one that fits you, that you're comfortable talking with, or that your child is comfortable talking with, and then stick with that. Because more than like, my daughter right now has both a therapist and a psychiatrist, because the psychiatrist, she is on medication, and the psychiatrist meets with her monthly so she can evaluate her and talk about her meds and how they're affecting her. And then it's important also to take notes. If you or your child are taking medication provided by a healthcare professional for your psychosis or that your mental health state, it's important to document any side effects that you notice, anything off kilter that wouldn't normally happen on a daily basis. It's really important to document how often they're happening and what exactly is happening. So the next meeting that you have with that person, you're able to communicate. And so they can't help you if you don't help them, basically.
Yeah.
Same with a therapist. If you don't share information with your therapist, like how you're feeling, what you're going through, they can't help you if you don't help them.
Yeah, I really love that, like, even with that therapist then not feeling like a fit, and then you didn't give up. And so you said, okay, I'm going to keep calling places. And then you call this next place and they say, oh yeah, we can work with you, but in 6 months. And again, another time where it would have been so easy to say, okay, therapy's not for us. Therapy doesn't work. But what I love about your story, and what I just think that so many parents need to hear, is that these are very common barriers. There are these things that we go through. And even as an adult looking for our own therapist, there are these barriers that we go through. And I love hearing, and I love that our listeners get to hear that you went through them and came out the other side. And so you said, okay, that place has a 6-month waiting list. Okay, well, I'm going to go find another resource for her. I'm going to find another agency that doesn't. In Heart & Solutions, we don't. Okay. So, but like you said, there are so many people who don't know, these other agencies exist that don't have a waiting list. There are so many people who don't know that that BHIS is a thing, that in-home behavioral health intervention is a thing, and that if you've got Iowa Medicaid, it's free, and therapy is free if you've got Medicaid. Like, people don't know, and it's not their fault that they don't know. But what we encourage you, anybody who's listening to this, we just encourage that the more people know about these resources, the more information that you know, the better support you're going to be for when your child or your parent or your sister or your cousin needs somebody to contact. You can go, oh, I know who to call. I know who to go to, and can help connect them and save them some of that frustration that so many parents or so many caregivers go through trying to find a counselor.
I can't imagine the other parents and how they feel right now with the COVID and trying to find places that your child can meet with them and everything. I mean, I know what I went through, and it was pretty much right before COVID hit. And then we were going through the thick of it when COVID hit. I don't know. I guess to me, I kind of view her symptoms and her depression and what she's going through as a task to complete. Like, so depression isn't a thing that starts from point A and ends at point B. Depression can be a lifelong thing. Depression can be short-lived. It just matters to the individual, matters what happens to the individual, matters what they're going through, what's causing the depression. I didn't know that at the time. I figured, oh, well, I'll get her help and she'll be able to get through this, because again, I didn't understand it. And I thought it was kind of like a health concern, like a health hazard. So it's like, well, you know, like when you go to the doctor, they give you medication, they give you this, and then you're healed. You know, poof, you're healed. I kind of thought the same thing for her mental health. I thought, well, you know, she can talk to somebody, they can prescribe medication, poof, she's healed. You know, doesn't work that way. So every day we've learned over time to take it one day at a time. Just take it one day at a time, 1 second at a time, 1 minute at a time. Just anything. Don't force things. Don't push. Don't just let it be, and listen to your child. And if you have concern yourself, don't be so hard on yourself. Everybody is so important. Everybody has worth. And I think people forget that every day. Like they think to themselves, well, what is my worth? What am I good for, basically? And that's kind of where they get with that. And it's so not the case. Everybody is so important. And it's important for people to seek help if they're not feeling themselves, you know, especially if it's been a while that they're feeling not themselves. It's important to seek that help. And if you don't have the energy to seek help, ask someone to do it for you.
And if anybody is listening to this and is stuck in a place of in any one of those time points, right, where my child's seeing somebody, but they just don't feel connected, or my child is, you know, I'm on a waiting list somewhere, reach out to us. Chrissa and I, we are definitely available to help anybody, even if you're in a different state. We are more than happy to help walk you through. So send us a message on Facebook. You can find us on Facebook at You Need a Counselor Podcast. You can also find us on Instagram, and you can send us a DM message there. Let us know if you are having any of those struggles. What we love to do is, if you have specific questions for Jennifer about the journey that she is on and is continuing to be on, what I love hearing you say is that, you know, there's this kind of expectation or idea out there, and it's nobody's fault. It's just kind of what we think in terms of medical model, that like mental health is like breaking your leg. You go in, you get a cast, and then you are healed. And the truth is, what you've expressed is that sometimes it is a managing of those symptoms. It is a coping with those symptoms long term, and learning how to integrate those skills and those behaviors that do help keep us well into our everyday life, instead of saying, oh, I've got a problem, I'm feeling depressed right now, so this is what I need to do to fix it. I also love that even with that, you were open to integrating medication into your daughter's support team. There is kind of sometimes this idea of, we're going to go to the doctor, we're going to get some pills to take once a day, and that's going to be it. And what you've done is, not only you did provide her with that support and with that structure, and that's needed for so many people. I saw a meme the other day that was like, when people tell you, well, if you take a mental health medication, you're going to be on that for the rest of your life. And then the response is like, well, I wear glasses every day, right? Or I wear contact lenses every single day for the rest of my life, right? And same situation here with mental health. And it's the same with our brain as it is with our body. If we want our body to be well and to work well, we got to do certain things on a regular basis to move it, right? To stretch it and to feed it and water it, right? And the same thing with our mental health. The sooner that we can identify the pieces of ourselves that we might struggle with, or we might have temptation to struggle with, or we might have a challenging time with, we can start to say, okay, so how do I live my daily, weekly, monthly, yearly life so that I am being proactive and I'm doing the things that feed and water my mental state, right? So I really, really love that. I think that is awesome. We'd love to have Jennifer back on. If you have questions specifically for Jennifer, send them to us on Facebook. And then when we have Jennifer back on the show, we can ask those questions and have Jennifer answer those questions again next year. Jennifer, thank you so much for being on the show. We've really loved having you here. If you could give one suggestion to somebody on the fence about starting counseling for themselves or their child, what suggestion would you give them?
Well, first and foremost, what are you going to lose talking to somebody? What will you lose? You're not gaining by not talking to anyone. So what would you lose? Absolutely nothing. So what's the harm? Just try it. A lot of people think that they don't need someone to talk to. We as humans need other humans, regardless if we think we do or not. We do absolutely need we're social creatures. We're not meant to be alone and not talk to people. So especially with COVID right now, it's really important that you connect with someone. And if that someone happens to be a therapist, to just talk to you unbiasedly, then so be it. Try it. You don't really have anything to lose by trying it. I'm Jennifer, and I need a counselor.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right. So if you are in the state of Iowa, call us at 800-531-4236 to learn more about therapy. We also do therapy in school. We do it in our 9 locations across Iowa. Find out more about BHIS for your children, behavioral health intervention right in your home. It's free if you've got Iowa Medicaid. Therapy is free if you've got Iowa Medicaid too. We accept all major insurance types. So give us a call. And what I'm loving phone therapy. I'm loving, like, as a client, I'm loving it. I'm like, this is fantastic. I don't have to put this face on, right? I can just be in my pajamas. I'm loving that.
And like Julie mentioned at the beginning, we post every Sunday night. So save up your laundry throughout the week, your whatever weekly chores you have to do, wait until Sunday night and listen to us while you do that, or Monday morning while you're getting ready for the week, to help motivate you to call your counselor as well. So I'm Chrissa Brown.
And I'm Julie Johnson, and we need a counselor.
And so do you.
Bye.
Hi, thank you.